you have the third picture in a franchise, there are several things that you can do to make it more fun, make it bigger, make it better.
Big, crazy, I mean, it's everything.
It's a big, big logistical nightmare.
This is like number 1 and number 2 combined, with the effects, with the stunts, with the multiple states, the multiple locations, the traveling circus. I don't think I'd have it any other way.
It's like nothing you've ever seen, you know? It's really crazy.
They must be thinking, is that big enough? Maybe that's not big enough. We gotta go bigger. We gotta think bigger.
I've never been challenged like this in my life, and I can't honestly say that I think I ever would have been had I continued going the way I was.
Everything's much better in this movie. It feels magical. I think we've learned from the first 2. This time we worked our butts off to make this the best. It's great.
Transformers!
I think the reaction to the second movie played a large part in the development of the third movie. Michael was very aware, as was the studio and Lorenzo. Everyone was aware that the reaction to number 2 was not as favorable as it had been to number 1.
The second movie was just sort of like a lot of second movies. It's an introduction of new characters. You know, how do we keep this exciting? How do we keep the discovery? New people, new faces. But we overdid that. I think there was too many new characters to pay off, and we didn't have the time.
Oh, I'm thrilled. Oh, I'm sorry, Transformers 2.
Was I proud of the movie? Yeah, there are things that are great in the movie, the things that are fun. It wasn't my best movie. I knew we could have done better. We were slogging through the ending, but it got sloppy, and that's just because it's too little writing time. The movie was written during a writer's strike. Strike happened, we're still prepping the movie, and I said, we're already into this. It's not the best way, this is totally not the way to do a movie. I would never recommend it again, but we're gonna get this movie going, hell or high water.
Some of the flaws in it can be traced to the guild strike and not having enough time to really develop a story that might get to a deeper character level. But I think that movie came out of criticism of the first that, wow, these robots are so amazing, and what you can do with the effects are so amazing. We wanted to see so much more of that. And so I think the design of Revenge of the Fallen became about spectacle first, as opposed to starting with a stronger narrative through line and finding the action scenes that would fit that.
You know, it was a yeoman's effort, I guess, for being under the circumstances.
Michael wasn't sure that he wanted to make a third movie. He wasn't sure, certainly, that he wanted to jump into it right away.
Michael first thought he'd take a break between Transformers 2 and Transformers 3. Go off, do a little movie or something. But he realized that you might lose some of your key crew. And Michael Bay is a very loyal person, above and beyond everything, which is pretty cool. And once he has a team assembled, he's got people he's worked with for years. He loves working with the same people. I certainly enjoy working with him, and he realized we probably should roll into the next movie and keep all the same team so we know what we're doing and build upon what we already know.
What we did first was design robots. Dozens of robots, literally. Some got facelifts, some got new weapons, some got new armaments. That was the priority. So the marching orders were get these robots together and get going.
One of the nice things about the evolution of this franchise is that with each successive movie, we've had more liberty to create characters for the robots.
On the second one, what we ended up doing was, you know, venturing into more personality-driven robots and also into more unique anatomy. And on the third one, I'd say it probably just kind of continued along the same lines in that we've now transitioned fully into kind of a creature realm of organic motion and organic design, but still within our Transformers kind of mechanical language of materials and shapes and all that sort of stuff. And then I would say that on the third, we went even more into specific kind of characterization, personality explorations. You know, we'd done some of that on the second, but on the third, it was even more so.
I think we wanted to introduce some exciting new Autobot and Decepticon characters, but only a few so that we really got to know them as characters, and they each got their moments to really register and make an impression.
In previous movies, Bumblebee was Sam's guardian first and foremost. And in this movie, we felt like Bumblebee should graduate from that role. So we wanted Bumblebee to be one of the fighting ranks. He's gone from kind of up-and-coming member of the Autobots to a real leader of the Autobots.
He had sort of cosmetic changes to the car that would then influence and show up in the robot in subtle ways. But, you know, as fundamentally his face and all the things that really make him identifiable haven't changed.
The car was the same for the first two movies. And we just needed to freshen it, update it a little bit, use the newer model, incorporate a lot of GM's new ideas to get just a fresher, sharper car. In this movie, Optimus now has a trailer.
It's a 53-foot Great Dane refrigerated trailer. It's just the most beautiful semi-trailer, if there was a beautiful semi-trailer, which turns into some type of flying apparatus.
We had a power-up idea on the second one, you know, that when the SR-71 character dies, he sort of, or sacrifices himself, he takes on a lot of that guy's actual body matter, which if you think of it in literal human terms is kind of disgusting. But he takes his power and his paneling and all this kind of stuff and turns himself into a flying, powered-up Optimus. Maybe that idea was lingering in Michael's mind and other people's minds for the third one was, let's do it again, a power-up Optimus, but let's, number one, explain, you know, whatever happened with the trailer from the, you know, from the original series, let's do something with that, and number two, you know, the idea of Uber Optimus is just cool.
The concept Corvette that we have is so cool looking. It's definitely a Corvette, and yet it feels completely different.
It's essentially the same car as the second film, but the second film, it was a hardtop. We sent it back to GM and cut the top of it and made it the roadster that it is today. He is Enzo, as in Enzo Ferrari.
Early on, Enzo was sort of modeled on a character from the mythology called Mirage. And in an early draft of the script, he had some powers of invisibility, ability to cloak other objects. And as we pulled those out, we left the Mirage sort of name behind. But in that case, it was really important to Michael that this character have the personality of a Ferrari. So we really wanted that car in the movie. So we gave him an Italian accent and an Italian name. Q was initially modeled on a character from the mythology named Wheeljack, who was an inventor and a technical specialist.
Initially, you know, it was sort of, okay, it's Q from James Bond, sort of, so, and he's gonna be an old Rolls Royce. It's like, okay, that's cool. So I've got like a little retro vibe to play with. Maybe if he's a, you know, I remember Q being kind of tall and scrawny in the old movies, and so, you know, maybe he's a slightly bumbling kind of, you know, character. And the first take I did on it, Michael, you know, rightly so, said, that's a Pixar design. That's not our movie. Like that, it's too cartoony and it's too kind of cute, and I don't like it. Then sort of a mandate came down, honestly, I think it was from Spielberg, why don't you make him look like Albert Einstein? Literally.
The Wreckers are 3 new vehicles. The interesting thing is they're partially transformed and they're equipped with Gatling guns.
I just think they're the coolest invention ever. I mean, race cars with guns? What more could a boy ask for? I don't even know how to call them. They're not cars, though. They're war machines. They're speed war machines, you know. Combining sheer firepower and speed, how cool is that?
In the mythology, they had a very mercenary personality to them and couldn't always be trusted, but ultimately would show up and get the job done. So for the movie rendition of them, we saw them as a pit crew, and thus the NASCAR disguises and the brash kind of rough and tumble attitudes.
That was a neat attempt to do a real mashup of alien aesthetics with you know, hardcore nuts and bolts NASCAR, you know, space frames and all the cool stuff that's underneath those cars. I felt like that was an example of where we, you know, rather than a new Transformer thing that was kind of, you know, harsh and kind of spiny and threatening and all that sort of thing, it was actually a fun, you know, kind of colorful take on robots. Megatron has fallen on horribly hard times in our movie, and it's almost sad to see the bad guy, you know, laid so low as that. As much as he's a terrible guy, you almost hate to see him like that.
We just wanted to make him kind of pathetic, ugly. That's why we had the sheet, the cloak with his ripped off face, trying to plan his sinister little plan.
He's taken on a very earthy, organic kind of tone in terms of the truck vehicle and his venue when we see him in Africa and all that. So that was a new thing to explore.
Shockwave was a big deal in the Transformers mythology. He was a character who had remained on Cybertron for the Decepticons and was leading the battalions there. He really represents kind of brute force and military tactics. And what we wanted for the movie, and we chose Shockwave to represent it, was a character that as soon as he appeared on screen, you knew he was a fearsome foil for Optimus. When Michael and I first started discussing how to present Shockwave, I pitched in the notion of a steed or a mount, kind of a horse for Shockwave, as if he could enter with this chariot. And for story purposes, we needed something that would tunnel underground to reach this engine part in the Chernobyl sequence. So I pitched this driller idea as a snake or a worm, and it was fairly straightforward.
It took us a while to figure out what the driller was exactly in relationship to Shockwave. I mean, it was clearly a vehicle, but at the same time, it's its own entity on some level, and the way that he drives it, you know, is he sitting in a cockpit, or is he more like Spartacus on a chariot? You know, there were different kinds of postures and relationships to him. I mean, at one point, it was almost as if is the driller a bunch of almost independent worm entities that he has lashed together with a kind of a saddle or a harness, if you will, and he's kind of riding them. You know, is he riding worms on some level? So that, you know, ultimately it ended up being more like a cockpit, I would say, but there were still some visual elements that suggested kind of a riding-like sort of way of using your hands.
What I pitched is basically a straightforward drilling snake, but of course in true Michael Bay fashion, once it went through his imagination and the artist at ILM, became this multi-tendrilled hydra of a huge thing the size of 3 city blocks. And the first time he showed me the visuals for that, I said, oh yeah, that'll work. The Dreads were characters that Michael brought to the table early on, as he has done in these movies. There are some characters that he wakes up with a vision of in the middle of the night and comes to a meeting and says, I see these guys. I don't know how they fit into the story, but they're going to be animalistic, and it's going to be awesome if we use them in this car chase we're talking about. I just want these guys to be scary.
Decepticons, usually they're flying, they're some kind of spaceships or jet fighters, but now they brought them into vehicle mode.
And they don't exist in the Transformers mythology. That's a Michael Bay special.
We have a new arch villain in the movie under the name of Sentinel Prime.
Sentinel is kind of the key character for this movie. In my initial drafting of the story, I talked about this notion of finding in the mythology a father figure for Optimus, someone that he had apprenticed under. And there's not a lot about Sentinel Prime in the mythology, so I felt that it gave us a lot of license to take a character who existed in Transformers lore, but do something new with him. and do something surprising with him and find an Autobot whose betrayal could really emotionally impact Optimus.
I always wanted somewhere in the Transformers universe to do what I would consider a proper kind of Gundam, L-game, Japanese knight warrior kind of robot, because it's such a huge, great library of influences out there to choose from. I said, I know this is not going to fly. I'm just going to do it because I want to see how much of a, a slightly more traditional, cleaner design I can sneak in. And to my surprise, it actually went through. Ultimately, it had to be articulated into a more Transformery language, but the basic shapes and gestures ended up largely kind of as clean as I had originally sketched them. It got articulated with extra sort of negative spaces and lots of mechanical parts and all that, but fundamentally there's some large contiguous flat surfaces on him that you ordinarily would never have made the cut, and I was happily surprised to see that it did. Some of the experiments we did where the face mask was extremely clean looking and sort of techie looking, I actually really like those, but I think, when you think of him as an older character, and obviously he has a huge story component and there's history behind him and all that, the decision to go with a more wizened and ultimately obviously a little bit piratey look was probably the appropriate way to go.
He needed to be something as big, if not bigger, than Optimus. And there was something about the fire truck that suggested ability, coming to the rescue, being on the side of right, that could subvert, our true designs with him. And Michael found a really cool looking fire truck. I wrote the script all the way up until we started shooting for the Michaela Baines character, with the assumption that Megan Fox was going to play that part again. She was in rehearsals a few weeks before we started shooting. And then, for one reason or another, it just became clear that it wasn't going to work out.
I had not seen Megan for about 8 months or so since Transformers 2. And when I saw her, she just didn't look like Michaela. It was just, I guess Hollywood sometimes has a way of casting a spell on women that they have to change their look, change how their appearance, I guess, to satisfy something. I'm not sure, but Megan's a stunningly beautiful woman, and we decided to go our own ways.
I guess we were all hoping that the family didn't break up, but it did. And we just kind of had to pick up the pieces and keep going,
It was difficult because we were a week away from shooting, and then we were a week into shooting, and we kept moving the Michaela stuff later and later.
We decided basically right away that we weren't going to throw out the rest of the plot of the movie and come up with a new plot that involved a new female love interest for Sam, but that we would maintain the idea that he was going to experience this adventure with a girlfriend character, and it would just need to be a new girlfriend.
Michael sent me a text message saying, you should really go to the audition for Transformers, and I assumed it would just be a small part in the movie, just a walk-on part.
Rosie came in. I think it was 400 or 500 women did an audition. And there was a spark about Rosie that I really liked, and she, said hello, good morning, thank you to the crew. My crew very much appreciated it, so it was a breath of fresh air.
A few more emails went back and forth from me and Michael, and I honestly thought he was joking. He was sort of like, you were good, and this movie might be coming your way. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And then there was a couple of phone calls, and then it was like, okay, this could be going somewhere. And still I was unaware of the of the part.
With the audition, it was a serious audition. It was. She did multiple auditions in New York, and then we just put her with Shia, with the full crew, with the full set, and we put her through the paces.
It's just not fair, I feel like I'm not working with the Autobots. I feel worthless.
Well, getting a good job's hard for everyone, Don't go into that little dark place that you go to.
I'm in a dark place.
There you are. Place that
Hard
you
for
go
everyone.
to.
How many interviews did it take you?
It took me one.
That's what I mean.
Well, one of us has got to work.
I would like to work.
You would?
Yeah.
Well, then get off your ass and go get a job.
I'm in the midst.
I was at home on the weekend watching this test, and I asked my wife to come over and watch it. And her reaction was, I want to watch her more. And that's a chemistry thing. That's not an acting thing. You can teach a person to act. You can't teach a person that. You either have that or you don't have that. It's a magnetism, it's an energy, it's something that makes you go, I want to watch some more of that. And when you see somebody who's never acted and they can project that, you know you got something special.
Michael called me the next day and then it was like, okay, right, you're in.
What it did do is it opened up some story possibilities that didn't exist with the Michaela character.
Over the 2 movies, the Shy and Megan relationship had progressed quite far, and it was going to progress a little bit more if Megan had been in the movie. But the truth is we got to restart in a way, and it brings a freshness and vitality that really serves the story and Shy's character and her character, and it's an unexpected thing that we've witnessed. I think it was Sidney Pollack who once said, it's great to watch people falling in love, but it's really boring when they're in love. And I never quite understood that quote until I saw this happen, which was, wow, there's a whole nother level of energy and excitement that has been brought to the project that is reminiscent of the first movie.
I think that change is always good, and though it is hard to let go of the past and choices that have become familiar, that sometimes it's okay to do new things and to go down a different road. So, you know, we certainly all wish Megan well in her ongoing career. It was time for us at this time, you know, to have a new choice, and Rosie has stepped in extremely well and is also beautiful and fun, and I think that the audience will respond to her in the same way that they did in the first 2 movies with Megan.
First shot of the movie. It's the foot landing on the moon. It's kind of appropriate. Action. Okay. Good. Feels familiar. Still exciting. Still nerve-wracking. See, I got the shake. You see that? That's just called the directing jitters.
3, 2, 1, jump!
The decision to shoot 3D was made fairly late in our pre-production process, but I think the benefit to shooting in 3D and releasing in 3D is a good one.
This is day 1. We look ridiculous, don't we?
3D. 3D. 3. Wait, I have to put my ice coffee down. Here, hold that. 3D.
Ready and action, moving around. Jim Cameron was one who really told me I should really consider doing this movie in 3D, really take a jump at it. So we did a lot of research. I brought in a 3D camera system and a crew, and I didn't want to know much about the camera. I wanted to just play a game like, okay, I'm going to pretend like I'm on a shoot. I'm going to time it, and I'm going to go from here to here to here to here to here. Okay, I want to see how fast they can leapfrog. That wasn't going so smooth.
It has affected the way we shoot because it's much slower.
It's clunky, it's heavy. You know, to set up those shots, it is a different thing. When you got a 3D camera that's as big as that RV, you know, it does change the pace.
The amount of cables, the amount of crew, the amount of shit. You know, it was just like, this is gonna be a nightmare. But what was going smooth was me looking through the camera and I'm watching it on the TV and seeing 3D right then and there. And I'm like, this is very cool. Neil, turn towards camera a little bit.
Most of the times when people shoot 3D, they'll shoot 15 days of 3D. We shot almost every day with a 3D camera, which is a lot.
They budgeted 2 weeks of 3D, but you know me, I told Ian day 1, 3 hours in, I said, Ian, I'm keeping this the whole shoot, I hope you know that. We put this camera through more paces than it's ever been put through in terms of the car rigs, the cable cams, and the craziness that we put this camera through. And learned a lot about it. It really helped the movie. It's a much different movie when you see it fully in 3D.
I like it. It's a pain in the ass, but who said something being a pain in the ass is not fun?
What you see in the background,
Ta-da!
it's part of a building that will, in the movie, will be falling over.
When I saw the previs of the thing, I thought it was the most incredible sequence.
Once again, Michael Bay has outdone himself.
I don't think I've seen a more clever action scene ever. I think that thing is going to blow people's minds because it takes a gag you've seen before and turns it into something you've never seen before, and that's really hard to do.
I'm sure they've had something tilted before in a movie, probably like Inception or something, I don't know, but they don't have any robots walking around the building. We're always a step above the rest because we got robots.
When I say right, he's over here, and then I'll say left, coming back left. And then I'll say real right, go back way over there. Right! Yeah, got it. Good job. All right, let's bring our thing down. We're done for the night. The engineering feat of the building sequence was a major challenge, and it all had to be engineered, done, built within 4 months.
The gimbal was actually built a different way. It wasn't just like a teeter-totter. It was hinged, so it lifted from one side.
Now, in order to achieve that, we had to build a special platform using hydraulics that would be able to lift the building up and be able to move that platform anywhere from 0 to 45 degrees, depending on what that building is doing at the time in the movie.
We used an iPhone app to figure out where a human can't stand. We found that 24, 25 degrees was very hard to stand. At 25, 26, 27, you slip, you're gone. You cannot stop.
We're gonna go from 0 to 27 degrees.
I still think we need a little steeper. We should go 2 degrees, guys, for this shot. I think we should go 22.
That platform is 1/3 of a football field.
We put 5 or 6 different sets in it. We'd go away for a couple days and the set dressers would come in and redress it for a different scene and for a different floor. We had the cafeteria, the lobby, and all the offices on the different floors. It took quite a few weeks of doing that.
You get in there? No. It's a mind. You get in there, it's like the movie Inception. It was bizarre. You walked into it. It's a square box, but your equilibrium is off.
When you're standing in there the first time and suddenly something flat goes to 26 degrees, and then everything is leaning, it's a fantastic phenomenon.
It's like being in Titanic when you're standing in there, isn't it? It's fantastic.
It's nauseous, that's what it's like.
The tilted building was a nightmare. It's a very hard thing to work in 30 degrees, 20 degrees. It's not normal.
Go, you. Come on, Jack. Oh, this is gonna be hard. Ready? And 3, 2, 1, action.
When it was all the way up, you couldn't stand. You could crawl down it. If you stood up, you're going.
The interior stuff was rough.
Rosie went right into the action stuff, the most intense part of the action stuff.
I really enjoyed the physical aspect of this film. I'm quite a physical person. I love that I got to do that. It was good. It's like being at the fun fair.
I said to Shai, I said, you know, I really want to bring the acting game up on this movie.
This is the Michael Bay acting class. He said, on this one, I want to try, think about a pet bird. You have a pet bird, and that pet bird dies. Think about that on the way down. And I did, and it helped. Thank you, Michael Bay.
Thank you. Where will we be?
Where will we be?
Once we're done with it in this phase, it becomes the exterior of a building, which becomes what we call the glass slide.
that with glass. And we were able to wax it and slide the actors down it into pads and stop.
To speed them coming down the slide, this 110-foot glass slide, he had them sprinkle baby powder on their rear ends so that they would scoot down even faster.
I find Detroit to be, in many ways, a very beautiful city, but an incredibly melancholy city because of the history that's here that is no longer here. There's a great deal of sadness.
Detroit is definitely feeling it right now. I mean, of all of the cities, you know, especially out there where they make so many cars in that city, they feeling it right now.
The Packard is an empty industrial facility, and obviously the train station is an abandoned train station that's defunct, not used anymore, because it was built on the outskirts of Detroit in the anticipation that Detroit was going to grow and eventually get to the train station, but it never did. Pretty much all these buildings are derelict, and we have to make them habitable and safe.
Detroit allows you a lot of that stuff. It's got a lot of destruction there. It's just, it's very dilapidated. It's sad. It's very sad. You know, you got one of it was a jewel of a city in America. It's just kind of, it's fighting to stay relevant.
Sadly, there's a lot of urban blight here, which of course makes for great film locations. I mean, the art department did an amazing job. They turned the look of decay into a look of post-battle.
The biggest dress for us was to produce 5 rail cars and get one of them coming out of a 3rd floor window of one of these buildings, and then the rest, you know, as though they'd crashed.
I think you walk into the Packard plant with train cars, you know, laying upside down and sticking out of buildings, you think World War III just started.
I've been doing this job about 18 years now, and I never get tired of the ingenuity of the art department. And Nigel Phelps and Jennifer Williams done an amazing job on this. They've turned a really great location into a magnificent location.
See this? I gave her the gray hair, she says.
He gave me the grey hair. One of the delicious things was when he actually walked on the set and he walked under the rail car, he looked up and he said, "Is that real?" And I thought, if you only knew how difficult it was to get those rail cars.
We're at the GM Heritage Collection, which is one of every car that GM's ever made. Amazing, isn't it? Car heaven.
Have you heard his Optimus Prime impression? It's good. Just give him that top line.
I got you.
This is solid. This is really solid. Give him the top line.
Things just got a lot worse. We have no weapons that can match shockwaves. We've got to outflank and get behind them. Autobots, transform and roll out.
Shoot on Pennsylvania Avenue, and there's the Capitol in the background. And the logistics of working in Washington, D.C. are so challenging because of all the different permitting process that you have to go through and all the different governing bodies.
Washington, D.C. was by far the worst city I've ever shot in my entire life. It's easier to shoot under a space shuttle than to shoot on some grass in a roundabout in our capital.
Just an amazing labyrinth that you had to navigate to get all these permits done in the first place. And we're going to blow up 5 cars. We're going to flip them as if here comes the Decepticons flying down the street.
The president lives a half a block down there, and we're flipping cars almost in his front yard.
Hey, the Obamas need ear protection? Or are they asleep right now? I don't want to wake up the president, okay?
We did a 4-car flip there. 4 cars flying. It's quite interesting.
Basically what it is Decepticons are coming through the trees.
It's as if the bad guys are running up and overwhelming.
It's like a swarm of them. They're coming and they're going this way and they're running down that way.
There's 5 propane poppers out there.
There's going to be Willie Pete's and sparks and propane bombs back in here.
We have 3 or 4 of the large sparks that shoot up into the air.
This car's a flipper, that car's a flipper.
You're going to react to that one because the robot comes by and hits it?
Their stuff is a flipper, that's a flipper.
That thing's going to get hit. That thing gets hit, and this car gets hit.
This car's going that way, this car's going to be hitting this car.
It's like boom, boom, boom.
Bam, bam. Flash, flash, spark, spark, choo, choo.
Okay, guys?
All right?
All right.
All right.
Okay? All right?
All right, guys?
Okay, any questions? Okay. John Fraser and Jim Schwalm of physical special effects, and Kenny Bates is the stunt coordinator. You have to coordinate a lot of huge events on a weekly basis, if not daily basis. A lot of coordination that has to go into what the human beings are doing with the fireballs, with the flying cars, with the flippers, with the drivers. All these things have to come together, and they have to be seamless, and quite often there's not an opportunity for a take 2 because something is going to be damaged beyond repair.
Ready, guys? Rolling cameras. Ready?
A lot of coordination, a lot of discussion, and we get it done.
We were told you can't really shoot the Lincoln Memorial, but we got it. There were certain requirements that we wanted to shoot there, that we needed. We were shooting at night, and first ask was, can we have a Porsche Cayenne on the mall grass? And there's a ranger there, and she said no. Okay. Then we said, well, we need to light the memorial. She said no. She says, well, we can't shoot at night if we don't have light. She says the light will damage the memorial. Okay. So then I wanted to shoot in the memorial, and I understand that they don't close a memorial, and I'm willing to work with. But when I went in there, I did a little ploy. I sent Josh out, and we did a distraction down below. So all the crowd funneled out, went down, surrounded around. Josh was giving autographs, taking pictures, whatnot, while we were in there by ourselves with Lincoln shooting. We needed to take photographs 360 so that we could digitally map the entire Lincoln Memorial. She said, no, there are no tripods allowed in the memorial. Okay, but the tripod weighs like less than 2 pounds. It's a 35mm camera. No, you can't have a tripod. Okay, Casey, my AD, brilliant suggestion. He goes, okay, what if we take our shoes off and you put the tripod leg in each shoe? She's like, tired, 3 o'clock. Okay.
Check! Back to work!
That Maybach is like a $1.7 million car.
I heard $1.5 million and I heard $1.6 million.
1.3, $1.4 million convertible car.
One of a kind. Although I heard there were 2 of them in the world.
There are only 3 or 4 of them in existence currently.
And then at some point it became one of a kind. I don't know, it's just sort of ridiculous.
Michael Bay actually put cones and caution tape around them because he was nervous about, the grips walking by with stands and, and electricians with lights. And so he cordoned the car off until it was actually going to be shot.
Watch out, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Belt around this car.
I'm not getting near it.
Very expensive car.
Copy that.
$1,600,000. I don't like those seats by it.
Okay. I'm not going near it.
All right, thank you.
You want this on someone's lap?
Which, you got to respect him because he's so much into cars that he really presses the point that, we got to cover the seats, we got to cover the carpets, we can't mess up the car. So he's a little irate if anything does get messed up, because he really, you know, he likes cars.
And we did have one minor setback. I mean, that was the day that Michael just,
I mean, of all the cars. But I mean, there's a lot of really expensive cars.
You know, I looked at that driver when I saw him, and I'm like, that guy looks familiar. Oh, that's the guy who just does falls. You're not a driver. Huh. But you know what? I held my tongue and said, no, he must be a driver. He must.
Hey, Steve,
he must. No one would be so stupid. So when we lose like $500,000 in a day, I eat a Big Mac, basically. That's what I do.
Transformers 3 was the first feature to shoot at Kennedy Space Center post 9/11. So their security rules and their protocols were much stronger and much stricter than they were when Michael shot Armageddon there.
On our first meeting with Kennedy Space Center, it was, you will not be able to film beyond the gate. And then so you kind of accept it, but you keep going back, keep asking, keep bargaining, and keep twisting the arm, and eventually, yeah, on the day where you're right up underneath the shuttle.
I think Michael wanted to be the only director who shot there twice, and we did some amazing things.
We got to shoot on pad A with the shuttle right behind us.
To be standing so close to the shuttle where normally even NASA employees don't get to go as close as we got to go, so we were honored. It was fantastic. The other great thing about the shuttle is that the day before we started shooting, the whole gantry system had to open up for some maintenance, and which revealed the shuttle in its absolute glory. And it wasn't scheduled, it wasn't planned, and we were just lucky.
It's serendipity. I don't know what you call it. How does it all work out? That they had to keep the doors closed an extra day, so when we were going down there to shoot, instead of it being enveloped by this big superstructure, the doors were open and revealing the Discovery on the platform. I mean, it was unbelievable.
Well, it's a special day because it's opened up. You know, when we were doing Armageddon, it's usually closed, not as cool looking.
Mike likes to portray this very masculine character all the time. And sometimes when we have to do emotion, I need a different guy. I need the sensitive bae. So for me, those scenes get difficult. If it's MOS or something, then that's great for me because then I can kind of play my music. There was one time where we're underneath a space shuttle in NASA. But what we're filming is I'm losing my best friend who's now leaving me, and I may never see him again, and he's leaving because I threw him under the bus, essentially, which is a big deal, you know, and Sam's conflicted. And I was like, you know, Mike, I need to play this song, which was a song by a person called Feist, which is a woman who sings, so it's feminine, right? Mike's not having it. And I play my song, we do the first take, he's like, no, not gonna happen. And he takes my iPod out and he puts in his iPod. And now he puts his orchestral, symphonic, you know, march up the hill music. And I'm like, man, this isn't it for me. The marching up the hill music, it's not what I need right now. I need this is what I need.
He didn't want the orchestra music that would be appropriate for the scene in the movie. You know, I'm looking at the whole picture here, and Shia's got a very kind of harder-edged music. It wouldn't work for me to judge the scene with something so counterintuitive to what would be in the scene. That music would just take me out of watching his performance.
But he kept harping me about the music choice. And I was like, Mike, the whole reason we have the iPod speaker out here is so that I can work myself up while you sit behind the camera and devise the shot. This is what I need right now, Mike. And I know it's weird and strange, and we got into it and it became like an explosive, one of our worst fights ever underneath a spaceship, which is pretty silly. I mean, we made up right like 2 days later, but I mean, me and Mike wrestle. That's our relationship. We get in there and wrestle.
wasn't for the VAB, less than 5% of the NASA employees have ever been up there. It's just an incredible privilege to be able to stand up there on that roof, see the launch pad from that perspective, see, you know, the entire Space Coast region from up there, because it's one of the largest buildings in the country. To be able to stand up on that roof and actually film a scene up there was a true privilege. The SSPF is the space station processing facility. So they pack all the clothes, the food, the research materials, everything that goes up to the space station. So those folks are working in bunny suits. And here we come with the film crew, and our guys had to wipe down the cable. I've never seen cleaner cable than the cable we had inside the SSPF. Because if you were to get some bacteria from some cable that we had laying in an alley in the city of Chicago, I mean, those people's lives are at stake, so they can't have any bacteria or anything go wrong up there. You know, it was really amazing. This crew has been so great. They wiped down everything. I mean, not one complaint. I was very impressed and very proud of this film crew.
Michael has a top-notch, world-class crew. He readily admits that.
They're pros.
There's a reason why Michael brings all these people back. A, they're the best in the world at what they do, and B, they have this crazy ability to put up with Michael Bay.
This has to be all grips on hand with this thing. It is not to move under the tail. You understand me? Yes, sir. All right, am I very clear? Yes. Good.
He has to be General Patton. It's the only way to get these movies done is to have that mentality. I don't think you could be a sensitive, sweet guy and get all the cogs moving. You couldn't.
Working with Michael is tough. Working with Michael Bay it's not a picnic. Working with Michael Bay is difficult because when you arrive to the set, as soon as my feet hit the cement, I mean, I'm off and running, and we don't stop till we wrap.
He's not someone who's sort of interested in contemplating or reflecting or, let's just say, goofing around. This pace, I love it.
Michael may not be the most punctual person on the planet. I'll say that much, okay? But when he does show up, he wants to go, 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 go. So everybody has to strap it on and just run to catch up, because the man's amazing. He's got his own name on his tennis shoes, and he's, you know, he's all go, no quit until it's time to stop. Or I guess as Michael's tennis shoes says, boom! Bam!
I can't see, no, that's the commercial. That's the Nike working commercial. Here we go, ready? Ready, go one more time. Ready, Mike? 1, 2, 3. Boom! Bam!
Being at NASA, I mean, there's history here, you know, and it's American history. It's certainly some place that you've always been aware of, at least since I was a kid. And so many things in our lives came from NASA. I've got one of those Tempur-Pedic beds, that came from NASA.
There were several fun things that we did in our association with NASA, one of which was that Mike got to go downstairs into the shuttle control room and talk to the astronauts in the space station.
Guys, we were just filming a thing from Apollo 11, basically. We're recreating mission control, so that's why we're here at NASA.
Well, that's great. I love the first two movies and look forward to seeing the third one. When is that supposed to come out?
That comes out July 4th, and this one's the best of them all. It actually focuses on the space program and why we really went up to space.
To protect Earth from the evil Transformers?
I think one of the great things for me about having a NASA and a moon theme in the film was that we got exposed to NASA. And for me, you know, growing up as a kid in the 60s and watching man land on the moon, there was something epic historically that touched all of us. And to have that become a part of our film and to meet Buzz Aldrin and to meet all the folks at NASA, both at Cape Canaveral and the Johnson Space Center that we met, and to see firsthand what it is that those folks do to send astronauts into space is mind-boggling and just an enormous human accomplishment that really made a mark on me and our entire crew.
just when you thought Michael Bay couldn't throw anything more wacky at you, he throws wingsuited skydivers at you.
When people see it, I think there's going to be a natural tendency to believe that it's fake, and in fact it's not. It was all done real.
They gotta have the biggest set of brass balls I've ever seen in my life. I mean, those dudes are crazy.
I mean, it's really crazy.
I saw in 60 Minutes the Birdman with J.T. Holmes jumping off like Norway cliffs or something like that.
Michael saw J.T. Holmes and Julien Boulet, and it was a piece on these guys, what they do. They jump off of mountains in these wingsuits, and they look like flying squirrels. So he saw that, and he said, I want that in the movie.
I literally called Ian Bryce. I said, Ian, find those guys wherever they are, get them in the office. I want to put them in this movie.
To my surprise, the phone rang, and it was Ian Bryce, and he spoke humbly about a movie project and told me what it was, and I was like, sweet, I'm in.
J.T. Holmes was our main person. He was coordinating that unit, and he got a team of 4 other guys together, one of them being a cameraman. He was really the perfect person because he is very skilled at this type of thing. Yet at the same time, he's very calm. Like, he will say no. And he knew that he needed to pick a team of people that obviously were skilled, but also weren't daredevils. And 3 of the guys are on the Red Bull team, and they fly together all the time. And then he and Julien had flown a lot together, who was our cameraman.
My first meeting was I just sat there with Michael, and we talked about possibilities, and basically it was like, well, there's not that much to talk about until we choose a city and go there and find some lines.
We scouted with JT, and we went through the previs and figured out what Michael wanted. Then we went and saw the different buildings in different areas, whether it was the river or near the Willis Tower in Chicago, and tried to figure out how best to give Michael what he wanted.
This is like Disneyland for us, eh?
Yeah,
if you really think like Euro Disney and Disney combined.
We are going around from building to building asking whether we can do things like base jump off their building, because all of the shots that have been storyboarded can't be done by jumps from helicopters. So we've got to use a number of buildings like the Trump Tower, Hancock Tower, and maybe the Sears Tower to achieve some of these shots, because they'll be very useful sort of jumping platforms. And we've also been looking at a bunch of other tall buildings as camera platforms from which to show these skydivers whizzing past at improbable speeds.
Oh my God.
It came down to 4 locations, 2 base jumps, one in wingsuits off the Sears Tower, which is now called the Willis Tower, and then a regular base jump off the Trump Tower, and then other wingsuit jumps out of helicopters along the river and through other buildings in the city.
The reason we're doing 2 different types of jumps is because Trump Tower, if you jumped off there with a wingsuit, it's just not that high. You wouldn't get that much flying out of it. We're able to get more moments of usable footage, more flying in the urban terrain if we jump out of the helicopter. So the helicopter is a huge advantage. At the same time, it's a variable, so it makes it a little trickier in some ways for engaging the line and telling people where we're going to be. If we're standing on the Sears Tower, we can tell all the camera operators we're going to be standing shoulder to shoulder right there, for sure, 100%. And they can get framed in and dialed, so it makes it easy for them. Plus, base jumping is kind of the purest form of our sport, and we like to jump off of things. I like to get into the landing areas when there's nobody around me to ask a bunch of questions. Just kind of take it all in. Okay, what if I open here? What am I going to do? Where am I going to go? I can make a diagonal entrance into this parking lot. It's open. If I overshoot the parking lot, there's a street that's still good to go. A line here that works. Watch out for the fence.
The film company might have thought that these guys were a little crazy, when in reality they are the most level-headed, intelligent, you know, every thought, every variable is processed and talked about. It's definitely not kids jumping off of buildings.
We plan what we're gonna do and we stick to the plan. And I can say no. And when I chose the guys, I only would choose people that I know would say no. People that can put their ego in check and just say, look, I know there's hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in this morning of work, and sorry, it's not gonna happen. That's really important.
Ground the chopper, you copy? Yes, go ahead. We're green light on the ground, green light on the ground. Copy that. 1 minute away. 1 minute!
Norm, ready? Yeah, everybody's ready when you guys are ready.
We have 5 cameras rolling at any time on the stuff. And there are 3 ground cameras, although they're typically on the tops of buildings.
It's been pretty tough for us with the land-based cameras because what we have to do is get to a high enough altitude where we can shoot them and get some interesting backgrounds going by. And in addition to that, we're using really big lenses, so it's hard to find them when they're getting out of the helicopter, so there's all the stress of missing a shot. In addition to that, there's communication with the helicopter. We have space cam going. We have so many cameras going that it's really sort of like a military operation in terms of like understanding when they're going to jump, rolling cameras, having a shot, knowing where they're going. There's just a lot of logistics. So, you know, we'll work all day long to get maybe 4 shots.
There's 3 or 4 guys on tripods on different parts of the city shooting. They're kind of at the disadvantage. You know, the most exciting stuff potentially will come from the helicopter and from Julian's air-to-air.
It's actually a 3D camera mounted on his head, so it's 2 lenses on his head, and he's flying with the boys, and that footage is going to be really stunning.
That's really the camera to do the POV. I mean, he really jumps out with his guys. He has the camera right, and he's right on their tails. That's a great vantage point to see their close proximity to buildings.
10 seconds, guys. 10 seconds. Go ahead and start rolling. Jump. Hit jump.
How'd it go? That's awesome. That's sweet. Coming around that corner, it swings you out pretty wide, but that's a pretty cool building right there and pretty nice river. This is fun.
We're doing a really strange form of skydiving where we get out really low. We get out at about 1,800 feet, and we're pulling at 400 feet, you know, even sometimes a little bit less. And we would choose reference points of buildings. Okay, that's a 400-foot building, so when we get to that level, pull. People look at this and they think, okay, now that the parachute's open, the danger's off, but really it's, you know, we're deploying right next to each other. And that's really technical stuff, because you're opening, you're avoiding your friends, you're avoiding hazards like buildings and light poles, you're dealing with the wind, and you're landing on concrete. You're making these split-second decisions. You know, open, where am I gonna land? You have emergency outs. We walk all over every landing area and just, you know, you kind of pay your respects to the little light poles and little hazards. And then when you come in at 110 miles an hour and you have 10 seconds to land your parachute, you know, you've seen it before.
Morning, great, fantastic, ready to jump off this building.
The concept of base jumping off tall buildings is always a sensitive one for those tall buildings and the people who own them and manage them.
I mean, to get to the top of these buildings, Willis Tower, the security, there's just no way. Here, we're spoiled. I mean, we're putting our wingsuits on in the lobby of the Willis Tower, getting in the elevator, being escorted, pressing the 106th floor all the way to the top, climb up some stairs, go out to a custom-made platform, and bail off at your leisure. You know, we had all day to session the Willis Tower. That's huge.
To put all this stuff together and be able to do this and the permissions and everything, it's a big deal to get this type of stuff.
Logistically, it's a pretty big deal. There's a lot of elements to coordinate. You have to coordinate lock-offs with the police department. We've got a lot of production assistants who are helping us coordinate people, so when the helicopter is flying over the area where they're jumping, that is cordoned off so it's safe. You know, we follow all the strict FAA regulations. Cameras on 2 separate buildings. There's all kinds of stuff going on. It's beautiful chaos.
Being on the top there on the corner jump, you know, that takes a lot of emotional strength to gather the courage and jump there. It's just really visually overwhelming.
They're very quiet before they do a jump. They're very serious.
When they do their jump, their mental focus is off the charts.
What it is when you're focused is you're analyzing what is making you scared. You know, what is it? Is it the line of flight I'm worried about? Is it not being able to fly far enough to not be able to reach the landing zone? Is it the wind conditions? And if you go through like, okay, those 8 things that I'm concerned about that are making me scared, and each one of them is not actually bothering you enough to say no, each one of them is like, no, actually that's within my abilities. And you go through each one objectively and think, all right, you know, this goes, I got this.
All right, we're giving 30-second warning. We're giving 30-second warning.
So let's just harness that fear and turn it into focus, and just now you focus on the task at hand. All this stuff's within our skill set, but you gotta perform at least okay.
10 seconds, 10 seconds.
This is not a gimme. This was pretty advanced skill level stuff for us.
5, 3, 2, 1, go.
It was a really special day. We jumped off the Willis Tower with wingsuits. The building's never been jumped before, and not a lot of buildings have been wingsuited before. No buildings in the United States that I know of have been wingsuited. It was cool to jump on an iconic building, and we got some great shots for our scene, and we had a great experience.
JT and the guys are really happy and lucky because they are living a dream. I think for base jumpers and for wingsuit people particularly, it's always been a fantasy to, wow, wouldn't it be cool to fly between 2 buildings? Wouldn't it be cool to go down a city avenue and deploy? They get to jump off a lot of natural terrain, a lot of mountains, but doing jumps and proximity flying in a city area, it's always been an unattainable fantasy. And they're getting to live their dream. They're getting paid for it, and you know, Transformers has made it possible, but it's just nice to see that, you know, since the advent of wingsuit flying, people have always wanted to do this, and now it's happening.
It's pretty rewarding to be able to go and do something like this and know that there's nobody else in the world that is actually capable of doing this. And yeah, like, makes you feel pretty cool. You're capturing something that's new, special, and you just got to wait and let the memories come back, and they do.
I always thought I was going to be relieved once it was over because there's stress and there's anticipation and nerves. And it's a bit of a nerves roller coaster. But yesterday when we made our last jump flying wingsuits through the city, I was like, my heart sank. I was really bummed. It's like if it's Christmas and you're, you know, 6 years old, you wake up the next day and Christmas is over, and it feels like an eternity before there'll be another Christmas. And there may never be another Christmas for us. And it just felt just like that. You just like, oh, it's over. Like, it was rad, but it's over. And you know, you just hope you get another taste of it sometime. They could have done this whole thing fake, and it would have looked good, but not real. And I think Michael Bay's movies are rad because he has real action. And when you see stuff and you say, holy cow, well, you know, that did just happen. Somebody like me just went out there and did something rad for a camera. You know, it's cool that Michael has that attitude and he places value on that, and he went and spent, you know, $500,000 to, you know, get all this stuff green lighted and to put every damn cop on the street corner, you know, ensuring safety and the safety of the city, and, you know, paying location fees, and all because he wants it to be real. He wants real action, and you know, thank you. I'm proud of it, yeah. I mean, it's tough to be proud until you see a finished product, but I'm proud of the flying we did. I'm proud of myself because I grew a lot as a flyer and earned the trust of the whole Red Bull Air Force. They're the best flyers in the world. You know, it was cool to come to the city and stomp some lines and kind of make your little artistic impression on the city, and I'll never look at Chicago the same again. So looking forward to see Matt Butler and Michael Bay put their touch on the sequence. You know, it was really cool to have Matt come out to the skydive zones that we went to, and he and I had a beer yesterday and he was excited. He was like, I am confident. I'm gonna be able to, you know, take this and add the special effects and make buildings blow up and collapse behind you. And he has what he needs to do his job, so that means we've done our job.
This is my friend Cody here. Cody, he's pretty persistent, right? Aren't you? He, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago, he was in the alley by my office. He knew who I was because he had seen my signed Bay films, and right? He wants he was trying to give me his acting photograph card, and because he wants to be in one of my movies. And let me tell you, he keeps bugging me to act in one of my movies. So I brought him into the office. I showed him around, and he's been there several times. And the thing that's fascinating is this little device, this iPad here. I mean, this iPhone. He actually communicates. There's certain words that I can't understand from him, but he communicates with just like typing with his nose. And the buttons are a little small, aren't they? A little small? They are a little small, right? Yeah. So I said, we got to get you an iPad, because this is pretty remarkable that he can communicate with me on this thing. And so I spoke to the people at Apple, and they were able to get you an iPad, right? Because I told you you'd use it better. Look at this. This is the iPad from Apple for you. So do you think you can use this? Yeah? So do you like that size? If Apple could get more of these devices, because it's an amazing tool where he can actually communicate and type out what he's saying and feeling, and it's just, I think it's remarkable, and I want to thank Apple for doing this. Cody, do you want to thank Apple for doing this? Oh, he said thank you, Apple. That's good.
Thank you, Michael.
All right, you got it, guys.
It's my pleasure to introduce two titans of filmmaking, Jim Cameron and Michael Bay.
I actually think that all films benefit from 3D in varying degrees. But when I heard that you were considering 3D, I thought, man, I've got to tuck Michael into this somehow.
He invited me to the set of Avatar. He's like one of my idols here. And he says, Michael, we've done everything. And I'm like, well, you sunk the Titanic. I didn't, so I got a lot more to do. But he said, you got to look at it as a toy. It's another fun tool to help get emotion and character and create an experience. And I'm always trying to create a great summer experience for the moviegoer.
The marriage of your technical filmmaking and action and the lucidity of the shot design that you create, these long evolving shots that just go and go till your jaw's dropping. And I thought, I've got to see that in 3D.
Was there anything that you actually did with the camera with this rig that hadn't been done before or tried to do?
A lot of stuff. We're putting these rigs on these cable cams, and you know, you put a 3D camera on a wingsuit guy following these wingsuit guys through the canyons of Chicago, through the buildings, around the buildings, about 150 miles an hour. It was a huge challenge. We used the Avatar crew. They're one of the best 3D crews around. You know, I'm just a director with a little dream of doing a 3D movie, and
But talk about it from an aesthetic standpoint. How did you find actually shooting in 3D?
To me, I like the intimate shots, like Bumblebee, where he comes into your space, because emotionally you can feel these huge things, and it just felt right for this movie. I always have foreground, midground, background in all my shots, and that's just how I've done it my whole life. And so it really fit very natural how I was shooting, and it was just great to sculpt with space.
I just saw the whole picture, and it's pretty great. I like the depth, I like the fact that you're using the 3D aggressively and really embracing it.
What's the most exciting element of 3D movie making at this point?
Just like Jim said, I had fun on the set shooting it. It was like a new toy, and I actually had a wonderful time doing 3D.
I think it's the applause of the audience when they see something that blows their minds. That's the most exciting part. You've won them. You know you've taken them someplace. I mean, it's what we just experienced here. That's what's great about it.
You can't beat a line like that. Right?
You're gonna be fine, I promise.
It's the most ambitious sound film I know, without question, I've ever been a part of. I assumed this movie was going to come out in 2012. So when I heard that they moved it up, I went, oh wow, okay, here it comes. It's coming sooner than we expected.
As we were finishing Transformers 2, Michael had said, this one's gonna be much more intimate, fewer explosions. I kind of went on that illusion for a little bit.
He had mentioned that he was going to tone down the action. Didn't tone down the action.
This is every bit as big as any of the other Transformers films, maybe combined.
Michael's great in the way that he works with us because he gives us a tremendous amount of freedom. So it's really up to us to sort of react to it and to create what feels right to us. And then we'll take it to him and get him to react. And the great thing about him is that he's very clear about what works for him and what doesn't work.
I know him pretty well. I know what he likes. He likes a powerful, bold, dynamic mix, but we really try to stay clean, and clarity is obviously the key here.
The approach with these movies is to first just collect as many cool sounds as possible.
We make it a personal challenge to go out and record as much fresh sound as we can. It's inspiring to us to get out into the field and get new material, fresh ingredients. One of the things we talked about wanting to do with this movie at the most basic level was really push it to the next level in terms of how we take organic sounds and twist them into the electronic, and conversely, how we take electronic sounds and sort of twist them into the more organic world. One of the things we started playing with was an electric guitar to move in that sort of direction where you're just sort of straddling the borders between, okay, is that an organic sound or an electronic sound?
John Marquis performed, maybe an hour or two in 2 separate sessions of guitar licks. One place where those sounds really stuck were for these alien attack ships, which have big gun turrets that lock into place. And the motor sounds of those turrets locking into place are 100% John Marquis on the electric guitar. And it's basically a na-na-na. When that sound comes up, the residents of Chicago should feel terror because they're about to get blown away. For a movie like Transformers, there's a lot of just physical recording things that we need to do. Like there's a military component, so we've got military weapons, machine guns, vehicles.
All right, this is going to be a 12-gauge shotgun. Getting our levels set. Take 1.
as long as that's not in your way, you're good.
I'm good with that.
Cut.
There's a segment of this movie that has a shuttle launch. So we recorded a lot of rocket sounds and 2 different rocket launches on the West Coast out of Vandenberg Air Force Base, which were the largest rocket launches in West Coast history, a Delta IV rocket and an Atlas V rocket with these 100,000-pound payloads. The access that we get with the military through working on a Michael Bay movie is pretty extraordinary. And we had armed escorts helping us set up. The closest rig to the launch was 200 feet away from the launch pad. We set a little timer on the rig and went off to the quarter-mile position, set another rig there, and then we went to the evacuation point, which is a mile and a half, 2 miles away from ground zero. Record all of these angles, and there's a sequence in the movie where there's no layering of sounds, just that pure air-ripping rocket sound. One of the great playgrounds for us in sound is on the Foley stage. So doing what we called wild Foley in the beginning of the process yields some really, really fun sounds. One thing that we played with was dry ice, taking different types of metal and letting those resonate on the dry ice. There's one section of the film where there's a massive alien mothership crashing, and part of the metal groans and strain of the hull we made out of that dry ice. There's one whole sequence where we work with the tempo of the music, and Optimus's guns are playing the 8th notes and the 16th notes and are part of the orchestra. So the music's not just a separate sort of abstract thing playing along with action, but the music and the action are working together.
Here we go! Here we go! Keep it tight! Coming around. All right, focus, focus, focus.
This is the first Michael Bay film that we've mixed in 7.1, which is basically a kind of a quad surround experience. You have a left wall, left back, right wall, so there's 4 discrete channels, and there's a lot of movement in this movie. And being that it's also 3D, there's a lot of pulling things into the room. Having the left and right walls, which doesn't come from behind you, allowed me to pull sounds into the front half of the room. I could have a discrete rat-tat-tat-tat, kaboom, kaboom in the left back versus the left wall, and you really felt separation.
It's a great format for 3D because 3D does also pull into the room. You still do that with 5.1. You have to have 5.1 because theaters out there right now, I don't know the exact numbers, you're looking at 500 that are equipped to play 7.1 and then thousands and thousands that are 5.1.
I had a ball with it, and I showed a couple of sequences to Michael early on, and he just commented, God, the surrounds just feel really cool. What's going on? And I said, well, that's the 7.1. We told you we really wanted to mix this movie in 7.1.
I love going to the movies. I know how it is out there. And when we're doing like little delicate balances on things and something we're saying, should we make it a little lower? Is it going to be okay? I sit there and say, midnight screening, 700 people, totally into it, full room. Give it that little extra bit because you need that extra little juice. In here, we've got, 8 guys and we've been working all night and nobody's talking, nobody's cheering at the screen. You've got energy in a movie theater. You've got people that are just like pumped. And when they see things on the screen, they're just like, you feel sound from them. So you want to keep it just rocking.
I think we have answered what visually I think is probably one of the most outstanding visual effects film I've ever seen. It turned out as good as I'd ever hoped it would be. And my expectations were very high. Michael's expectations were very high. I can't think of a film ever with him that he's been this excited about the sound of his film. He continually talks about there is just so much here for people to enjoy. This is a cinematic experience unlike anything we've ever done. And I know it, he knows it, everyone on this movie knows it, and I just can't wait for people to actually get a chance to see it.